Hello there, and welcome to our Managing Your Time and Routine talk. Um, we will be getting started just now. So, without further ado, in fact, before we start, I just want to quickly let you know that this session is being recorded and will be posted on the Training and Peer Mentoring social media, and potentially on the Students' Union social media channels as well. But I believe that we've got interaction through microphone turned off anyway, so I believe that anyone who's as part of the session won't show up in the recording anyway. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Priya, who is our management lead mentor, to start the talk. Thank you, Priya.
Hi, thank you for joining us. Sorry, one moment. Okay, so I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Priya, and I'm currently a second year accounting and finance student and a management lead mentor. So you can contact me if you have any questions at any point in time. So obviously this term is very different to any previous terms we might have had at university, or if this is your first term at university, it might be very different to what you might have expected coming into it. So we have a lot more independence this term, with lectures being uploaded straight to Blackboard, so you don't have a strict timetable to follow and you can do the lectures whenever you would like to, however you'd like to. So I really like the fact that you can choose to break lectures up into chunks to suit your learning style, because I know that personally I find that it's easier if I give myself a break when I'm losing concentration. So I really prefer this to having to just work in 2-hour slots. And if you're lucky, you might have less 9 a.m.s, unless you're like me and you have 9 a.m. seminars, which I have twice a week. But in general, there's less commitment to working in the morning if that's not your thing, which I think is great because you can work to a style that suits you. So there's definitely more flexibility this term, and you can fit in lectures around any other commitments you might have. So if you want to do things with your family or friends at home, then you can fit in lectures around that. You should spend commuting to uni, regardless of how long or short that might have been. It's still time that you can invest in yourself instead. So some challenges you might find this term are that there's less structure. So you do have to do a little bit of planning yourself if you miss that structure. And I'd recommend making either a spreadsheet or a physical note of the work that you have to do. So I make a little physical note in a book, so what I've got to do, and I can keep on track of that week by week. But when you're planning, try to make it realistic. Don't overplan and stress yourself out at how much you have to do if you don't urgently need to do everything. Just try to make sure that you're getting the work you need to be doing done, and make sure that you're giving yourself breaks to do what you'd like to be doing in your free time, because it will ensure that when you are working, you're being more productive and you're not overworking and stressing yourself out. So plan based on what suits you. If you need more flexibility in your day, then obviously just plan the main lectures and plan quite minimalistically so you can fit in other work around that. But I would recommend that you try to give yourself a routine, because it will make it easier to keep on top of stuff. It might make it easier to get through the second lockdown. So your usual routine will inevitably have changed, and clubs or societies that you might have been planning on attending will be paused at the moment, so that might impact your routine massively. And I would recommend that if that is the case, that you try to find alternatives. So where possible, you might want to practice at home with your housemates, but obviously that's not possible for everything. For example, if you were doing rowing or swimming, you obviously can't do that at home, and that would be quite silly. But you could try to find a different alternative hobby to do at the moment. And I'd recommend that you do try to get outside if you aren't already, because now we'll be inside most of the day, and it's nice to give yourself a little break and get some fresh air. But at the moment, university are providing free activities pack, I think they're called, and you can order those on the university's shop. So they're free for you to order for your household, and I'd highly recommend that you do that. We had ours arrive yesterday, and it was so much more than we were expecting. There's so much to do. And a little pack of Uno. So if you want something to keep you going, I'd recommend you do that to give you something to do in your spare time. And if you are feeling like you're missing that structure, try to focus on the elements of your routine that you're keeping the same and build around them to try and regain that sense of normality where possible. Some positives with learning online, and you do have to try and focus on them to get through. So I'd recommend that you try and plan and get your lectures done so that you can focus on what you'd rather be doing in your spare time. And you've got more time to spend at home with your friends or family. And this is a really unique opportunity you have to figure out how you like learning. I'd recommend that you try and spend this time on figuring out if you like learning online completely, so making your notes on your computer, or if you like making your notes on paper, because I have been asked that in the past, and it depends entirely on you. So this is a really unique opportunity you have to figure out what you prefer doing. And you have so much more flexibility at the moment, and that might be something that you prefer and would like to keep with university moving forward. And also, you might be saving money at the moment with not having to go into uni and spend time on your commute. So if you are, you might want to spend a little bit of money to treat yourself and do something you would like doing in lockdown. I'm just going to go back a moment and talk about the responsibility we have this term. So you do have a bit more responsibility, and it's very important that you hold yourself accountable for that. So with university moving online, it's very important that you make sure that you are still meeting your deadlines, because it might initially feel a little bit less real or important, but it obviously is still very important. And it's important that you make sure that you're making a note of your deadlines so you don't miss them. So I would recommend making a note somewhere that you're going to constantly look at. So I make a note on my phone, on my calendar, so that anytime I go on, I know that there's a deadline there if it's coming up, and I'm not going to miss it. And if you're living with your friends, you can try to push each other when you're feeling unmotivated to make sure that you're getting the work done. Or alternatively, if you're living at home, you can ask a family member to try and push you if you know that you've got something important coming up and you don't want to miss that. So last year, when I was living in halls, me and my friends would knock on each other's doors for our 9 a.m. lectures to make sure that we were awake and that we were going to make them. But this year, if we know that we have a lot of work coming up that we need to do and that it's really important that we're up and working, we do the same, and we check in with each other to make sure that we're keeping on track and that we're keeping up with what we need to be doing. So I'd really recommend using your family members or your friends for support to get you through. So I think we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A now, if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Priya. That's really interesting stuff. I've got a couple of questions here for you. First of all, what do you feel has been the biggest difference for you in terms of studying remotely?
Okay, so there's obviously a lot of differences this term, but I think for me personally, the biggest difference would have to be lectures moving online, because we have so much more independence with them, and I really prefer having a lot more choice about when I do them. But I know that obviously that's not something that will suit everybody, so that might be something you prefer, like myself, or you might prefer the old style of learning.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It doesn't always suit everyone, does it? I suppose then, if you were speaking to someone who was less well suited to this new way of working, this remote way of working, what would you recommend to that student?
I would recommend that you try and figure out what it is about this new style of working that you're maybe not getting on with. So is it that you have more distractions working at home, in which case I'd recommend that you try and work on your working space and try and eliminate some of that distraction where possible. So try and get your phone away, get any noise away if that's possible, and make your workspace somewhere that you want to be, where you're concentrated. Or alternatively, if it's that you're missing company, for example, maybe you can FaceTime your friends or just do a little Teams meeting so you're working at the same time. You don't have to be talking, but sometimes having that company might help you.
Great ideas. Yeah, I suppose it's going to be very individual, isn't it? Like depending on what people's
Yeah,
individual reasons are for not liking it. Um, I really like the point you made earlier about making like lists and spreadsheets to keep yourself on track and all that kind of thing. Now, I love to do that. I love to make spreadsheets and lists to keep myself on track, but I always forget to go back to them and use them. What would you say to someone like me who makes their to-do list with the best intentions and then forgets to refer back to them?
I would say try to keep them in sight if possible, because I know it's very easy to just write them, feel really productive, and then just put them away and never look at it again. But I would
Totally.
say if you're doing it, exactly, if you're doing it on paper, try to have it in front of you, like just on your desk or something. Or if it's on your laptop, make a little electronic post-it note to try and make sure that every time you go on, you're seeing it and you know that you have stuff to do.
Great idea. I'll definitely be trying that. To end on a positive note, then, what would you say has been the biggest silver lining that you've personally taken from this lockdown and remote working?
I think for me personally, the biggest silver lining has to be having so much more choice about when I want to work and being able to work when I feel most productive. So I'm not forcing myself to work in the morning if I don't feel particularly productive, but I know that I'm getting the work done and I'm working when I feel more productive. So I'm actually working better in a way.
That's a great point, actually. Thank you so much for speaking for us. I'll end the recording now.